Austin heat has a way of settling into your bones, a thick, palpable thing even in the shade of my workshop, but I like it here. There's an energy in this town, a mix of old-school Texas grit and new-wave creativity that resonates with what I do. I'm Alex. I bring classic cars back to life, taking rusted-out shells, forgotten beauties from dusty garages, and meticulously restoring them piece by piece. There's an honesty in it, a control, a tangible result you can touch and see. It's the polar opposite of the chaos I grew up with. My childhood wasn't marked by slammed doors and tearful fights over other women like some stories you hear. Mine was quieter, more insidious. It was the creeping dread of payday, wondering if my dad's paycheck would make it home or disappear at a poker table in some dimly lit back room. It was the whispered, frantic phone calls about overdue bills, the sudden disappearances of treasured objects pawned for gambling money, the constant gnawing instability that permeated everything. My dad wasn't a bad man, not entirely, but the addiction had him, and it created a home built on shifting sand, where promises were as fleeting as a winning streak. My mom did her best, working 2 jobs, trying to patch the holes, but the uncertainty, it leaves scars, deep ones. It taught me the corrosive power of secrets, the hollowness of broken trust, the desperate need for solid ground beneath your feet. I swore to myself, working greasy late nights in garages as a teenager just to have my own money, my own small island of control. My life would be different. Stability, honesty, transparency. Those became my cornerstones. No secrets, no hidden debts, no unpredictable storms brewed by someone else's weakness. That's what I thought I'd found with Chloe. We met in high school, that classic story. Awkward glances across the cafeteria, fumbling first dates, the easy comfort of growing up together. She was ambitious, vibrant, went into event planning. A world of logistics, appearances, and managing expectations, ironically enough. We were different. Her world fast-paced and social, mind-focused and methodical in the workshop. But our foundation felt strong because we talked. We laid everything out. We shared dreams of a stable future, a home filled with laughter, not anxiety, built on mutual respect and absolute honesty, especially about money, about plans, about where we stood. It was non-negotiable for me, a direct reaction against the chaos of my past. And we built it. Or so I thought. We married young, poured everything into my fledgling restoration business. Years of hard work, long hours, reinvesting every dime. Eventually it paid off. The business thrived, known for its quality, its meticulous attention to detail, my obsession with control manifesting in polished chrome and perfectly tuned engines. We bought a house, a rambling ranch-style place on the outskirts of Austin, enough land for a proper workshop out back, a house I earned, my name on the deed, a tangible symbol of the stability I craved. Chloe was a whirlwind, managing high-profile events, always juggling clients and vendors. Her success grew alongside mine. We weren't extravagantly wealthy, but we were comfortable, secure. We had the life we'd planned. Nice dinners out, weekends exploring the hill country, saving for the future, talking constantly about everything. Or so I believed. Our connection felt deep, rooted in that shared history, those early promises. She knew my past, the scars that my father's addiction left. She knew why honesty and stability were paramount to me. She'd held me during moments of doubt, celebrated every business milestone, seemed as invested in the solid life we were building as I was. The affection was there, the shared routines, the comfortable intimacy of a long-term couple who knew each other inside and out. Looking back, maybe the signs were there. Subtle hairline cracks in the foundation I refused to see, because seeing them would mean acknowledging the ground might be unstable after all. Maybe her increasing need for work retreats, the vague explanations for lavish client gifts, and the occasional tension when I asked about event budgets. Maybe those were tremors I willfully ignored, because admitting my carefully constructed world might be vulnerable felt like tempting the very chaos I'd spent my life trying to outrun. I trusted her, implicitly, because trusting her was integral to the stable reality I had so desperately built for myself, and the thought that she, knowing my history, knowing my deepest fears, could ever introduce that kind of instability, that kind of betrayal. It was simply unthinkable, unimaginable, until it wasn't. It was a typical Thursday afternoon in Austin. The relentless Texas sun beat down outside, but inside my workshop it was cool, smelling faintly of oil, metal, and old leather. I was elbow deep in the engine bay of a '67 Mustang Fastback, meticulously reassembling the carburetor, lost in the focused calm that only working with my hands could bring. That's when my phone buzzed, vibrating against the metal workbench. I almost ignored it. Probably just another supplier update or a client checking in. But the name that flashed on the screen made me pause. Ben Carter. Ben ran a specialty parts business, sourcing rare components for vintage restorations like mine. We weren't close friends, more like trusted professional colleagues who shared a passion for classic steel. He wasn't someone who called just to chat. Wiping grease from my hands onto a rag, I answered, a vague sense of unease already prickling my neck. Alex? Ben's voice sounded strained, hesitant, not his usual brisk businesslike tone. Hey Ben, what's up? I asked, leaning against the workbench. Need something for that 57 Bel Air project? No, man, it's not about parts, he stammered slightly. Listen, Alex, this is awkward as hell, but I felt like I had to call you. Can you maybe step away? Meet me somewhere? The unease sharpened into something closer to alarm. Meet you? What's going on, Ben? Is everything okay? Yeah, I'm okay, he said quickly. It's about... Look, just meet me. How about Cosmic Coffee in half an hour, South Congress? My mind raced. What could be so urgent, so awkward that he couldn't say it over the phone? Against my better judgment driven by a rising tide of anxiety I couldn't quite place, I agreed. Okay, half an hour. The drive down South Congress felt surreal. My thoughts churned, trying to anticipate what Ben could possibly want. Business trouble? A problem with a mutual client? Nothing prepared me for what came next. We found a relatively secluded table outside, the murmur of conversation and traffic a low hum around us. Ben looked uncomfortable, fidgeting with his coffee cup. All right, Ben, spill it, I said, trying to keep my voice level. You're making me nervous. He took a deep breath. Okay, look. You know, I deal with a lot of event planners for car shows, right? Setting up displays, sourcing vehicles. I nodded, confused. Well, Chloe's company handles some big corporate events, and sometimes our paths cross peripherally. Yesterday I was at a supplier meeting, and Chloe was there in a separate conference room down the hall on a loud call. Door was propped open. I couldn't help but overhear parts of it. He paused, looking genuinely pained. She was booking a weekend getaway for this coming weekend at that fancy spa resort out in the hill country. The Vineyard Creek Inn. I frowned. Chloe hadn't mentioned any weekend getaway. We were supposed to be working on landscaping the backyard. Okay, maybe a work thing? Client retreat? Ben shook his head slowly, meeting my eyes. Didn't sound like work, Alex. She was talking to the concierge, confirming a couple's massage, champagne service to the room, specified a king suite with view, and she mentioned the reservation was under the name Marcus Thorne. Marcus Thorne. The name hit me like a physical blow. Thorne was a wealthy, older client Chloe had been working with extensively over the past few months, planning some big charity gala. She'd mentioned him often, demanding but important for her career. I felt a cold dread seep into my veins. And, Ben continued, his voice low, the part I really couldn't ignore. I heard her say, clear as day, something like, no, just the two of us. My husband thinks I'm on a solo personal retreat. He won't suspect a thing. The world tilted. The cheerful sounds of South Congress faded into a dull roar in my ears. My carefully constructed reality, the stable ground I thought I stood on, suddenly felt paper-thin. Disbelief warred with the cold, sickening certainty crystallizing in my gut. It resonated with that old familiar fear. The fear of secrets, of hidden plans, of instability lurking just beneath the surface. Why? Why are you telling me this, Ben? I managed to ask, my voice hoarse. Ben leaned forward, his expression earnest. Look, Alex, maybe it's none of my business, but my old man, he did stuff like this. Ran up secret debts, had a whole other life my mom didn't know about until the creditors came knocking. It destroyed our family, wrecked my mom financially, emotionally. When I heard Chloe, damn it, it just sounded too familiar. I could not say something. What you do with it is your business, but I figured you deserved to know. I appreciated his honesty, his difficult choice to get involved, but the information itself was devastating. A solo retreat, Marcus Thorne, champagne. He won't suspect a thing. Part of me wanted to rage, to deny it, to accuse Ben of mishearing or misunderstanding. But his sincerity, coupled with the sudden recollection of Chloe being vaguely secretive about her plans for the upcoming weekend, telling me she just needed some time to herself, it felt terrifyingly plausible. "Okay," I said finally, the word feeling heavy, thick. "Okay, Ben, thank you, seriously. Just keep this between us, please." "Absolutely, man." He nodded quickly. "Consider it forgotten." We parted ways, Ben looking relieved to have unburdened himself, me feeling like I'd just been sucker punched. Driving back to the workshop, my mind was a chaotic whirl. The old anxieties, the ones I thought I'd successfully buried under layers of hard work and routine, surged back with a vengeance. Was my stability just an illusion? Was Chloe, the person I trusted most, capable of such a calculated deception? By the time I pulled back into my workshop, the shock had begun to morph into a cold, hard resolve. I wouldn't fly off the handle. I wouldn't confront Chloe based solely on Ben's overheard conversation. That would lead to denials, gaslighting, more uncertainty, the very things I couldn't tolerate. Number, I needed proof. Undeniable, irrefutable proof. Sitting in the quiet sanctuary of my office, surrounded by the reassuring presence of solid steel and methodical work, I made the call. Mr. Davies, Private Investigations. I explained the situation briefly, clinically. Suspected infidelity, upcoming weekend trip, need for surveillance at the Vineyard Creek Inn, focusing on confirming the presence of Chloe and Marcus Thorne together. Davies listened, asked precise questions, quoted his fee, exorbitant but irrelevant at that point, and confirmed he could have operatives in place by Friday morning. Hanging up, I felt a strange sense of calm amidst the storm. A plan was in motion. Now came the hardest part, going home, facing Chloe, and acting like nothing was wrong. Acting like the trusting husband she believed me to be, while waiting for the evidence that would either confirm my worst fears, or just maybe, prove them blessedly wrong. The facade of stability had to be maintained, at least for a little while longer. The day and a half between hiring Mr. Davies and the impending weekend crawled by with excruciating slowness. Living under the same roof as Chloe, knowing what I suspected felt like balancing on a knife edge. I threw myself into work at the shop, the familiar rhythms of sanding, welding, and tuning providing a fragile anchor in the churning sea of my anxiety. Every interaction with Chloe was filtered through a lens of suspicion. Her casual smiles felt calculating. Her affectionate touches felt like manipulations. Was she genuinely oblivious? Or was she studying me, gauging if her secret was safe? The uncertainty was a familiar echo of my childhood, waiting for the other shoe to drop, never knowing when the ground would shift. On Thursday evening, I received a brief, encrypted message from Davies. Reservation confirmed. Thorne, M, +1 guest, King Suite, Vineyard Creek Inn, Friday to Sunday. Subject C, Davies listed as guest name. Operatives are in position. Confirmation. Cold, hard confirmation. The fragile hope that Ben had somehow misunderstood, that this was all a terrible mistake, evaporated completely. Later that night, as we were cleaning up after dinner, Chloe brought it up just as casually as if discussing grocery lists. "Hey," she said, drying a plate, her back mostly to me. "I was thinking, I really need a break this weekend. Just some time to de-stress and recharge. Things have been so hectic." I kept my voice even, turning from the sink. "Oh, yeah? Where were you thinking of going?" "You know that spa resort out in the hill country? Vineyard Creek Inn? My friend Lisa was just telling me about it." She lied smoothly, finally turning to face me, testing the waters with a tentative smile. "I was thinking of just booking a room for Friday and Saturday night. Solo trip. Unplug completely." Solo trip. Vineyard Creek Inn. Listed as Marcus Thorne's +1. The pieces clicked into place with nauseating precision. The casualness of her lie, delivered while looking me straight in the eye, was staggering. This wasn't just infidelity, it was a profound disrespect for the foundation of honesty I thought we had built. The old wounds, the ones left by my father's deceptions and the ensuing chaos, ripped open anew. "This weekend?" I asked, injecting a mild note of surprise, maybe disappointment. "But we were going to start grading the backyard for the new patio." It was a weak protest, designed only to make my eventual acquiescence seem genuine. She waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, we can do that next weekend. I really feel like I need this, Alex, to clear my head." She came over, wrapped her arms around my waist, resting her head against my chest. The gesture, usually comforting, now felt like a calculated performance. "You don't mind, do you? Just 2 nights." I forced myself to return the embrace, fighting the urge to recoil. "No, honey, of course not," I said, the words tasting like acid. "If you need the time, take it. Hope you find whatever you're looking for out there." Relief washed over her face, so palpable it was almost comical. "Thanks, baby," she said, kissing me lightly. "You're the best." She thought she had him. The trusting, stable husband, the man who wouldn't suspect a thing. Friday afternoon arrived. Chloe packed a stylish overnight bag, humming softly to herself. There was a final flurry of affectionate goodbyes, kisses for me that felt cold despite her warmth, promises to call, which I now knew she likely wouldn't or would keep brief and vague. "Love you, try not to miss me too much," she called out brightly as she backed her car out of the driveway. The moment her car disappeared down the street, the switch inside me flipped. The forced calm shattered, replaced by a maelstrom of emotions. White-hot anger, profound hurt, and the icy resolve of a man pushed past his breaking point. The echoes of my childhood, the lies, the instability, the feeling of being powerless in the face of someone else's destructive choices, flooded back. But this time, I wasn't a helpless kid. This time, I had control. And I would exercise it. I didn't waste time on grief or second thoughts. I walked purposefully through the house, my house, built with my sweat and dedication, as a monument against the instability of my past, and began the purge. It wasn't a frantic, rage-fueled destruction. It was methodical, cold, efficient. Every trace of Chloe needed to go. Her clothes were pulled from the closet, folded neatly, almost clinically, and placed into sturdy moving boxes I had bought earlier that day. Shoes, accessories, and makeup from the vanity, toiletries from the shower, all boxed. I moved through the rooms like a detached inventory clerk. The event planning awards on her office shelf? Boxed. The live laugh love sign she insisted on hanging in the kitchen? Boxed. Photos of us together. I paused only briefly, the smiling faces mocking me, before sweeping them into a box designated for memories. Those were hers to keep or discard. I focused on the items that symbolized the promises she had broken. The expensive espresso machine we bought together, celebrating a big business milestone, representing shared mornings that now felt like a lie, unplugged and boxed. The framed print from our first anniversary trip, taken down, boxed. Financial documents, bank statements pertaining solely to her, gathered and boxed. I even opened the small safe where we kept important papers, removing her birth certificate, social security card, passport, anything that tied her identity to this physical space. This wasn't just removing her belongings, it was erasing her presence, reclaiming the stability she had so carelessly compromised. It took nearly 3 hours. Box after heavy box was stacked neatly by the front door, an imposing testament to a life dismantled. I surveyed the house. It felt emptier, yes, but also cleaner, lighter, as if a toxic presence had been surgically removed. The final step. I called the 24-hour locksmith I had already researched. While he worked swiftly, rekeying every lock in the house, I carried the boxes out, loading them into the back of my pickup truck. I drove them a few blocks away and deposited them neatly on the curb outside the apartment complex where her sister Olivia lived. I sent Olivia a brief text. "Chloe's things are outside your building. She won't be returning home." The divorce itself finalized quickly after that. With no children involved and no grounds for Chloe to contest the division of assets, the house was mine, earned through my business. Our finances had been largely separate beyond basic household expenses she could no longer claim. It was straightforward. Her signature arrived via her lawyer's office, looking small and shaky on the final decree. It was done. A clean legal break, though the emotional debris remained. Life in Austin settled into a new kind of quiet. The workshop became my sanctuary more than ever. The meticulous process of restoring classic cars felt grounding, honest. I poured my energy into the business, taking on challenging projects, finding satisfaction in bringing order and beauty back to forgotten machines. I reconnected cautiously with my mother. She had called again after hearing about the finality of the divorce, offering a simple, heartfelt apology for her earlier misguided advice. "I forgot my own pain for a moment, Alex," she'd admitted quietly. "You deserve better. You deserve stability." That acknowledgement finally began to mend the rift between us, and weeks turned into months. I didn't seek out news of Chloe. Her fate, while tragic, felt like a separate reality now, a consequence of her own choices. My focus shifted inward towards rebuilding my own sense of security, not just financially, but emotionally. The fear of instability, the ghost of my father's gambling still lingered, but it no longer controlled me. I had faced the chaos and stood my ground and survived. I had chosen stability, chosen honesty, even when it was painful. I hadn't repeated the cycle of silent suffering I witnessed as a child. Then one evening my phone buzzed with an unexpected text message. Sophia Harrison. Back in Austin for a bit. Owe you a drink for getting me to California in one piece. Mostly. You free? I hesitated. The road trip felt like a lifetime ago. A strange fever dream. Was reopening that door wise? But her message held a note of humor, of self-awareness that was different from the sullen girl I'd first met. Against my better judgment, I typed back, sure, local bar down the street? Give me an hour. Seeing Sophia again was interesting. The sharp edges were still there, but softened now by a wry humor and a surprising thoughtfulness. We talked easily, sharing stories about the Harrisons, laughing about the absurdity of our road trip. There was no pretense, no agenda. It wasn't a date, not exactly, but it wasn't not a date either. It felt like two people who had seen each other at their worst, acknowledging a strange bond forged in shared adversity. I didn't know where it would lead. The idea of trusting someone fully again felt daunting, maybe impossible. The scars from Chloe's betrayal were deep, a permanent alteration to my internal landscape. But as I sat there sharing a drink with Sophia, listening to her witty observations, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long, long time, a flicker of cautious optimism. A sense that perhaps even after the demolition, new foundations could be laid, stronger, wiser, built not on illusions, but on the hard-won lessons of the past. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time it didn't feel terrifying. It just felt open. Back at my house, the locksmith finished up, handing me a new set of keys. The click of the deadbolt sliding home felt definitive, final. This space was mine again, secure, stable. Chloe had made her choice when she drove off with her lies, and I had just made mine. Sunday afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows of my now strangely serene house. The oppressive weight of Chloe's hidden life, and my own forced complicity in pretending not to know, had lifted. It was replaced by a heavy certainty, a grim kind of peace. I spent the day methodically cleaning the workshop, organizing tools, finding solace in order and tangible tasks while waiting for the inevitable confrontation. I knew she'd be back sometime today. Around 4 p.m., her sleek SUV pulled into the driveway. I watched from the living room window as she got out, humming softly, digging in her purse for her keys, looking every bit the relaxed wife returning from a refreshing weekend away. The performance continued right up until the moment she slid her key into the deadbolt. Click. Nothing. She frowned, jiggled the key. Click, click. Still nothing. Confusion flickered across her face, quickly followed by irritation. She tried the handle, locked it tight. Then she noticed the empty space on the porch where her favorite welcome mat used to be, the slightly different sheen of the new lock set. Her eyes widened. She started banging on the door, sharp, angry raps that echoed through the quiet house. "Alex, Alex, open the door! What the hell is wrong with the lock?" I took a deep breath, composing myself, then walked calmly to the door and opened it, standing firmly in the doorway, blocking her entry. She stopped mid-bang, staring at me, then at the doorway, then back at me. What is going on? Why doesn't my key work? Did you change the locks? Her voice was sharp, demanding. Yes, I did, I replied, my tone even cold. Your key doesn't work because you don't live here anymore, Chloe. Her jaw dropped. What are you talking about? Don't be ridiculous, Alex. Let me in. She tried to push past me, but I held my ground. I told you, I said, meeting her gaze directly. When you walked out that door on Friday, heading to the Vineyard Creek Inn to spend the weekend with Marcus Thorne, you made your choice. You chose to lie, to betray the promises we made, and that choice has consequences. This is my house now. You're not welcome here. Mentioning Marcus's name, the specific location, details she thought I couldn't possibly know, visibly stunned her. The color drained from her face. How did you... Marcus? It wasn't like that. Save it, Chloe, I said tiredly. Save the lies. I know where you were, and I know who you were with. Just then, another car screeched to a halt behind Chloe's SUV. Olivia, her sister, jumped out, face thunderous. Clearly, Chloe had called her sister in a panic the moment her key didn't work. Or Olivia had seen my text about the boxes. "Alex, what the hell do you think you're doing?" Olivia stormed up the walkway, immediately taking Chloe's side. "Chloe called me, hysterical. You changed the locks? You kicked her out? Over some stupid misunderstanding about her needing a weekend alone?" She glared at me, ready for a fight, clearly fed only Chloe's curated version of events. Chloe clung to her sister's arm, starting to cry. "See, Liv? I told you he was overreacting. It was just a spa weekend." I looked from Chloe's tear-streaked face to Olivia's indignant one. "A spa weekend," I repeated, my voice dangerously quiet. "Is that what you told her, Chloe? Is that what you call booking a king suite under your lover's name, planning couples massages, telling the concierge your husband thinks you are on a solo retreat?" Olivia's aggressive stance faltered. She glanced at Chloe, confusion dawning in her eyes. "Chloe, what is he talking about? Marcus Thorne? That client?" Chloe stammered, cornered. Marcus was at the resort. It was a coincidence. We ran into each other. Maybe we had a drink, but enough." I cut her off. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I didn't need the PI's photos yet. I simply played a short audio file, a recording from my workshop's security system from Thursday night, capturing the audio of Chloe on her phone in the adjacent room, confirming her booking with the Vineyard Creek Inn concierge. Her voice clear as day, mentioning Mr. Thorne's reservation, requesting champagne service for two, and specifically stating, "It's a surprise for him. My husband thinks I'm traveling alone." Silence. Olivia stared at Chloe, aghast, finally realizing she hadn't been told the full story. Chloe's face crumpled, the desperate lies evaporating in the face of cold, hard proof of premeditation. Okay, Chloe cried, shifting tactics instantly. "So I planned to meet him, but nothing happened. I swear, Alex, we had dinner, maybe too much wine. I felt guilty, realized it was a mistake, and I came home early. I was back by Saturday night. I just didn't tell you because I knew you'd be mad." Another lie, easily disproven by the PI's report confirming her Sunday checkout, but I didn't bother correcting her yet. "You expect me to believe that?" I asked, my voice flat. "After you meticulously planned it, lied to my face about the needing me time, used his name for the booking?" I shook my head. "It doesn't even matter if nothing happened in this time, Chloe. The intent was there. The deception. The betrayal of everything we supposedly built this marriage on, honesty, stability, transparency. You knew what that meant to me, given my past. And you chose to bring that instability, that deceit, right into our life." Olivia looked lost, glancing between her sobbing sister and my implacable expression. "The trust is gone," I stated simply. "Irrevocably. Our marriage is over. I've already spoken to a lawyer. We're getting a divorce." Chloe wailed, grabbing my arm. "No, Alex, please, don't do this. We can fix it. I'll go to counseling. I'll do anything." I gently but firmly removed her hand. "There's nothing left to fix. Your things are at Olivia's apartment complex. I suggest you both leave now before I involve the police." Olivia, finally seeming to grasp the severity of the situation and the depth of her sister's deception, looked pale but nodded mutely. She put an arm around Chloe, who was now sobbing uncontrollably, and started guiding her back toward the cars. I watched them go, then stepped back inside and closed the door, the click of the new deadbolt echoing in the sudden quiet. A wave of sheer exhaustion washed over me, the adrenaline of the confrontation fading, leaving behind the dull ache of grief. But beneath it, there was also a sense of grim finality. Control had been reasserted. The chaos had been contained, expelled. The foundation, though scarred, was mine to rebuild. Alone. The immediate aftermath of the confrontation was strangely quiet. Chloe and Olivia didn't return. The boxes I'd left at Olivia's were presumably taken inside. Silence descended on my house, a silence that felt both vast and brittle. The first order of business was instructing my lawyer, Marcus Hayes, to proceed. The divorce papers were formally filed and served to Chloe via Olivia early the next week. Chloe didn't contest it directly, not initially. Her lawyer likely advised her, given the evidence I possessed, which Hayes made clear we had, without revealing specifics yet, that a fight would be futile and potentially more damaging. There were procedural delays, motions filed regarding temporary support, which Hayes swiftly countered, citing her premeditated actions and earning potential. But the wheels of legal dissolution were turning slowly but inexorably. Life settled into a strange new rhythm. I threw myself into the meticulous work at the shop, finding solace in the tangible progress of restoring metal and mechanics, things that responded predictably to skill and effort, unlike human hearts. The Austin car scene, usually a source of camaraderie, felt awkward now. Whispers likely circulated, mutual acquaintances unsure how to navigate the fallout. I mostly kept to myself, focusing on work and trying to ignore the gnawing ache beneath the surface of my anger. The stability I had craved felt fractured, even within the reclaimed solitude of my own home. The centerpiece of the workshop during those weeks was a breathtaking 1958 Porsche 356, a speedster, belonging to Mr. and Mrs. Harrison, the elderly couple who commissioned the restoration months ago. It was a challenging project, requiring sourcing rare parts and countless hours of painstaking labor, but seeing the classic lines re-emerge, the engine purr back to life, was deeply rewarding. The Harrisons were dream clients, knowledgeable, patient, and genuinely appreciative of the artistry involved. As the restoration neared completion, Mr. Harrison called with a request. They were spending the summer at their second home near Carmel, California, and wanted the speedster delivered there. "Normally, Alex," he'd said in his gentle patrician tone, "we'd have it shipped, but this car, it feels special now, thanks to your work. We were hoping you might consider driving it out yourself. We'd cover all expenses, of course, and add a handsome fee for your time. No one knows this car better." The idea resonated immediately. A cross-country drive in a perfectly restored classic, a chance to escape the oppressive atmosphere of Austin, the legal wrangling, the ghosts of my failed marriage. It felt like exactly what I needed. "Mr. Harrison," I replied without hesitation, "consider it done. It would be my pleasure." Then came the complication. A few days later, Mrs. Harrison called, sounding slightly flustered. "Alex, dear, there's been a slight change of plans. Our granddaughter, Sophia. She was meant to fly out to join us in Carmel next week for a summer internship, but her own car just died unexpectedly. We were wondering... It's a bit of an imposition, I know, but would it be terribly inconvenient if she caught a ride with you in the speedster? She needs to get to California anyway, and it seems... efficient." Sophia. I remembered her vaguely from the Harrisons' initial visit to the shop. Early 20s, sharp features, an air of bored indifference that bordered on hostile. Efficient? Maybe. Pleasant? Highly unlikely. The thought of being cooped up in a vintage Porsche with her for several days sounded like a specific kind of torture. "Mrs. Harrison," I started, trying to sound diplomatic. "The speedster isn't exactly built for passenger comfort over long distances." "Oh, she won't mind," Mrs. Harrison chirped, completely missing my point or choosing to ignore it. "She's adaptable. It's all settled then. She'll meet you at your shop Friday morning. Thank you ever so much, Alex. You're a lifesaver." And she hung up before I could protest further. So Friday morning found me loading a small bag into the speedster's limited trunk space while Sophia Harrison stood by, arms crossed, radiating disapproval. She tossed a designer duffel bag onto the passenger seat with a dismissive air. "Let's get this over with," she muttered, sliding into the low-slung car without a word of greeting. The roar of the 356's meticulously rebuilt flat-four engine was the only satisfying sound as we pulled out of Austin heading west. The initial hours were thick with silence, broken only by Sophia's occasional sighs and impatient tapping on her phone. My attempts at polite conversation were met with monosyllabic grunts or outright silence. We argued about the radio, her pop playlist versus my preference for the engine's mechanical symphony or classic rock that fit the car's era. And we argued about stopping for food, my preference for authentic roadside diners versus her desire for trendy cafes that were miles off route. It was somewhere deep in West Texas, the landscape stretching out flat and empty under a vast sky, that the dynamic began to shift, almost imperceptibly. We stopped at a dusty, forgotten gas station that looked straight out of a movie set. While I filled the tank, Sophia, complaining about the lack of artisanal snacks, managed to lock her phone inside the car. Rolling her eyes, she demanded I fix it. Instead of rising to the bait, I calmly used a trick involving a wire hanger borrowed from the station owner, a skill picked up in my early days tinkering with less sophisticated locks, and had the door open in under a minute. She stared, momentarily speechless, a flicker of grudging respect in her eyes before she quickly masked it with a scoff. Later, navigating a desolate stretch of highway as sunset painted the sky in fiery colors, the speedster suddenly sputtered, losing power. I coasted to the shoulder, the silence deafening after the engine died. Sophia immediately started complaining about being stranded. Ignoring her, I popped the engine cover, diagnosed a loose connection on the vintage fuel pump, and had it fixed within 15 minutes using the small toolkit I always carried. As the engine roared back to life, she just watched me, silent this time. That night, stuck sharing the last available room at a rundown motel off Route 66, a far cry from the Vineyard Creek Inn, I noted grimly. The forced proximity led to the first real conversation. Snippets about her internship, her frustration with her grandparents' expectations, her feeling of being adrift. I found myself sharing, cautiously, fragments of my own story. Not the raw details of the betrayal, but the underlying theme of seeking stability, of rebuilding after foundations crumbled. It was during that strained motel stay, scrolling through messages on my burner phone while Sophia slept, that I saw the text from my mother. "Alex, honey," Olivia called. She said Chloe told her she thinks she might be pregnant. "Please call me." The words hit me like a physical shock. Pregnant? Was this real? Or was it another desperate manipulation tactic from Chloe? A last-ditch effort to halt the divorce? To pull me back into the chaos? The old fear, the dread of being trapped by unforeseen complications, washed over me. I felt sick. But as I sat there in the dim motel room, the distant rumble of trucks on the highway outside, the resolve hardened within me again. Even if it were true, and it didn't change what she did. It didn't restore the trust. It didn't erase the lies. The divorce would proceed. But the news added a heavy, complicated weight to the already fraught journey. The rest of the drive through Arizona and into California was different. The antagonism between Sophia and me lessened, replaced by a kind of wary truce. We talked more. About cars, about family expectations, about the feeling of being stuck. I saw flashes of vulnerability beneath her cynicism. She perhaps saw something beyond the stoic mechanic dealing with his own unseen baggage. The shared miles, the forced intimacy of the small car, the raw beauty of the changing landscape. It was all chipping away at our respective defenses. As we finally cruised down the Pacific Coast Highway towards Carmel, the ocean sparkling beside us, the speedster running like a dream, I felt a subtle shift within myself. The raw anger was still there, but it was less consuming. The trip, the conversations, even the unwelcome news about Chloe, it hadn't fixed anything, but it had provided perspective. Distance. A reminder that the world was bigger than my own personal wreckage, and that even fractured foundations could sometimes lead to unexpected new roads. We arrived in Carmel under a perfect California sky, the vintage speedster humming contentedly after its cross-country trek. The Harrisons were overjoyed, fussing over the car, praising the craftsmanship, their delight momentarily overshadowing the awkwardness of my arrival with their granddaughter. Sophia, for her part, managed a polite, almost warm goodbye to me before disappearing into the sprawling beach house. Our tense journey had forged an unexpected, fragile connection, a silent acknowledgement of shared ordeal, though neither of us knew quite what to make of it. Flying back to Austin felt like re-entering a muted reality. The intense drama of the road trip, the stunning landscapes, had provided a temporary buffer, but now the unresolved threads of my old life waited. The first news came regarding Marcus Thorne. There was no dramatic lawsuit from my end, no direct confrontation needed. His downfall was self-inflicted, accelerated by the chaos Chloe brought into his orbit. Ben Carter relayed second-hand information. Thorne's reputation took a major hit when whispers of the affair, and Chloe's subsequent unstable behavior, leaked out through event industry channels. Major clients pulled contracts, worried about the drama. His finances, apparently already stretched thin maintaining his lavish lifestyle, couldn't withstand the blow. Last Ben heard, Thorne was facing serious financial difficulties, his carefully curated image shattered, a quiet, ignominious end brought about by his own poor choices. News about Chloe arrived via a strained phone call from her sister, Olivia. The pregnancy, as I had suspected, was either a manipulative lie or something that had resolved itself very early on. Regardless, it was no longer a factor. Chloe had moved to Dallas, apparently trying to start over near Marcus after I kicked her out, but the volatile mix of desperation, deceit, and Marcus's own crumbling world had predictably combusted. Olivia recounted a chilling story. Marcus, under financial pressure and likely blaming Chloe, had become physically abusive. Chloe had ended up hospitalized with injuries consistent with assault, a broken nose, bruises. Marcus was arrested. Chloe, discharged from the hospital, was now truly alone. No money, no job prospects, her professional reputation in tatters. Estranged from her family and facing the final stages of our divorce. Olivia sounded exhausted, conveying the information with a weary sense of obligation, not sympathy. The divorce itself finalized quickly after that. With no children involved and no grounds for Chloe to contest the division of assets. The house was mine. Earned through my business, our finances had been largely separate beyond basic household expenses she could no longer claim. It was straightforward. Her signature arrived via her lawyer's office, looking small and shaky on the final decree. It was done. A clean legal break. Though the emotional debris remained, life in Austin settled into a new kind of quiet. The workshop became my sanctuary more than ever. The meticulous process of restoring classic cars felt grounding, honest. I poured my energy into the business, taking on challenging projects, finding satisfaction in bringing order and beauty back to forgotten machines. I reconnected cautiously with my mother. She had called again after hearing about the finality of the divorce, offering a simple, heartfelt apology for her earlier misguided advice. I forgot my own pain for a moment, Alex, she'd admitted quietly. You deserve better. You deserve stability. That acknowledgement finally began to mend the rift between us. Weeks turned into months. I didn't seek out news of Chloe. Her fate, while tragic, felt like a separate reality now, a consequence of her own choices. My focus shifted inward towards rebuilding my own sense of security, not just financially, but emotionally. The fear of instability, the ghost of my father's gambling still lingered, but it no longer controlled me. I had faced the chaos, stood my ground, and survived. I had chosen stability, chosen honesty, even when it was painful. I hadn't repeated the cycle of silent suffering I witnessed as a child. Then one evening my phone buzzed with an unexpected text message. Sophia Harrison. Back in Austin for a bit. Owe you a drink for getting me to California in one piece. Mostly. You free? I hesitated. The road trip felt like a lifetime ago. A strange fever dream. Was reopening that door wise? But her message held a note of humor, of self-awareness that was different from the sullen girl I'd first met. Against my better judgment, I typed back, Sure, local bar down the street? Give me an hour. Seeing Sophia again was interesting. The sharp edges were still there, but softened now by a wry humor and a surprising thoughtfulness. We talked easily, sharing stories about the Harrisons, laughing about the absurdity of our road trip. There was no pretense, no agenda. It wasn't a date, not exactly, but it wasn't not a date either. It felt like two people who had seen each other at their worst, acknowledging a strange bond forged in shared adversity. I didn't know where it would lead. The idea of trusting someone fully again felt daunting, maybe impossible. The scars from Chloe's betrayal were deep, a permanent alteration to my internal landscape. But as I sat there sharing a drink with Sophia, listening to her witty observations, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. A flicker of cautious optimism. A sense that perhaps even after the demolition, new foundations could be laid, stronger, wiser, built not on illusions, but on the hard-won lessons of the past. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time it didn't feel terrifying. It just felt open.